resultant emotional and economic conditions you are left with after divorcing in court that still go unrecognizable just astounds me. It's hard to fathom why we are so slow to learn. For reasons of habit, we still find ourselves going to court rather than trying to settle peacefully in mediation. You will not likely be hurt in mediation. It is, however, very likely you will be hurt in a court of law. Today's discussion will center on the fallacy of court-based solutions and the efficacy of peaceful negotiation. We have with us today Chris DiMaggio and Don Deroches, both divorce mediators working in this field. Thank you and welcome
Thank you
to
for
the
having
show.
us.
Thanks for having us.
FIT has been telling the stories of the victims of family courts for years, yet the public is not aware of their options. My sense is that we should be teaching mediation to high school before those rookies emerge into the world and let the sex take over, before the thinking kicks in.
Absolutely. We wish we could do that. That's something we've always talked about, right?
Sure, absolutely.
Getting the education in early.
Yeah, get the education in early. And, my oldest son actually went for conflict resolution when he was in elementary school. So it's interesting that they haven't really expanded upon that program.
Good place
they did
to start.
They did a little bit of it, but they didn't really extend it too much. But
Something positive like that should be cultivated, I would
absolutely.
think. Yes.
Well, they do it in other states, but for some reason or other, everything's slow here.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we're the last to do everything.
Unfortunately, yeah.
So family court, is it good for the family?
I'll let you handle that one, Don.
Okay.
I've been
Well,
beating them up for a long time.
it usually is good for one party, and the other party it's
And that's
the same
questionable.
It's the same as yes, that's questionable as well. But the thing is, with any court action, there's a winner and a loser, and that's one of the reasons I think why me and Chris are involved in mediation, because we feel that with mediation it's a lot more fair. You're coming up with an agreement that's fair for everybody, and a parenting plan that works with your schedule, instead of
Right.
something that you're kind of told, okay, that you're going to be a non-custodial parent and you're going to visit your children. Who
Right.
visits their children?
It just seems so unfair.
Right.
The couple gets to decide what their outcome will be, rather than the judge, who doesn't really know the family or any of the conditions within the family. The couple gets to say how they want their future to be.
Right. Lawyers earn a lot. Their success depends on the extent of dysfunction within our families, doesn't it?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, lawyers all the time are. Think about the legislation. It's lawyers that are there making the laws, and New York has the highest rate of lawyers per capita than any other state in the U.S.
Do you know that
It's an
there's
amazing
more lawyers
statistic.
in New York than any country? It's true.
Didn't know that.
Yeah, let me inform.
I didn't know that either.
Let you be the first. More lawyers in New York State than any country has lawyers.
Yeah, so now you know why we're the last ones to make change in legislation in terms of
There's
some
still
of these
money
things.
to be made in the system for lawyers, so why would they want to change that, right?
Well,
Even-
divorce is $1 billion, it's
Yeah.
huge industry, so
It's shameful.
why would they want to change that? I mean, when you think about family court, when you walk into family court, there's 3 court officers when you first come in. Now, I haven't heard of any incidences, have you, where they needed those court officers?
No, but they must be there for a good reason.
They must be, and there's 3 of them when you first walk in. And then on the other side, the other entrance, there's 2 more. And then when you walk on every floor, they're every 10, 15 feet.
Well, every now and then, where they're not so well protected, they're accosted or shot, and again, for good reason.
Right.
So that's the muscle. I mean, if you go into a dangerous club, you don't even have that many bouncers.
No,
right.
you don't.
That's right.
It's amazing.
So what's the reason why they're there? Are they there to show people that there's a possibility of incarceration, or
Probably an intimidation
what's the reason?
factor.
Intimidation factor.
People are
I
going to
mean,
be mad. It's an adversarial system. It's one pitting one party against the other. They're going to be upset about that.
Right.
So your only option is to defend yourself and attack.
Mm-hmm.
That's why it doesn't work, because we're not talking about the defense and attack of the couple that's in court that's going to
Right.
benefit the family.
Right.
So the more acrimony they can build in that system, the more profit-making the system will be, because it needs the guards, it needs the parking lot attendants, and it needs bigger government, it needs bigger agencies, or everything all attached to
It's supporting a whole regime, unfortunately.
That's right.
Yes,
what it is, yeah.
absolutely. I mean, you know, I guess about over 100 years ago, children were considered assets. So they were then immediately given to the father, because the father was the one who had them. Then they changed that to the tender years doctrine, the early 1900s, late 1800s, where they always gave the child to the mother. And in 1962, they started family court. And from that point, they basically, you know, they made this claim of the best interests of the child, but they never really defined what that means. And they continued the tender years doctrine because nobody really defined what is the best interest of the child.
You would think that they meant to nurture the the children in those circumstances and to help them through
That's
it.
why you can't adjudicate a relationship. When it comes to a definition, they can't even make it up. You can't even get to a definition about what a best interest is because you're not in an adjudicatable position when you're talking about an emotional relationship.
Right.
Right, so here you have an attorney for the child who's in court, in family court. You have an attorney for whichever party brings one. I mean, family court, they say you don't need one, but if you don't have a lawyer in family court, you're really, you know, you're in a difficult situation.
And they'll make you pay for not having an attorney. Pro se advocates are
Yeah,
notoriously
you're walking out
been
onto
beat
that
up.
street at high noon and taking your best shot.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, it's
Yeah.
a scary proposition.
Yeah, I mean, I know situations where someone went in pro se and they had everything documented, they had all evidence and things like that. There was a false accusation made against them, which a lot of people use family court as a tool to get custody of the children and to get the child support, because that is the lottery win. I mean, you are trying to get that lottery. You want to get that jackpot. So,
amazing.
you know, you want that check every week. You know, just like, you know, with the lottery, you scratch off and you get that payment per week. That's what they're looking for. So, you know, they go
Win
in
for
there.
life.
Yeah, it is. And so you go in there as pro se and you're prepared and all that, and it really doesn't matter. I mean, the other side is supposed to prove your guilt, but in family court, that's not how it is.
Well, you can't prove an emotional condition, fluctuating emotional reality for
Well, I'm
somebody.
talking about the false accusations when they
Oh, well,
say
well,
that
that's-
you
I'm
did
sorry.
something.
I'm sorry, yes.
You did something, and you really didn't do. You didn't do what they're saying that you did, and they bring you into court, and they basically, you know, immediately get an order of protection because they say that there's domestic violence involved or there's a crime committed. So they get an order of protection. Now you're immediately separated from your children, immediately,
It's
from
amazing.
day one, because they're afraid that if they don't do that, and there is really domestic violence, and something does happen, that they're going to be held accountable for what happened.
Right. Again,
That's why we want it to be pulled out. I'm sorry, Sylvia, but that's why we want it to be pulled out of family court. An abuse or allegation
well,
should
you go
be.
into any court of law assuming fairness, because that's what our justice system is supposed to be about. And unfortunately, you don't find that in family court
Right.
these days.
That's right. And the one thing that I have found is that when you go into criminal court, it's very easy for the judge. I mean, the judge, what I've heard is there is justice there, but then when you get into family court and you have a similar, let's say, criminal case, there's no justice. I mean, it's basically guilty until proven innocent.
Well,
And-
in criminal court, the accuracy of the evidence is more available to a judge or to a lawyer or to the clients themselves. In an emotional condition as a marriage, where's the evidence? How available is it, and how accurate is it, and what is it dependent upon? Is not available to the system.
Right.
It's amazing. And you say the family court was established in 1962?
1962, yeah. So we went through a 50-year
I
anniversary.
mean, and I don't know any family that's been helped or has had a positive experience going through the system. I mean, do you?
No,
Very
I don't.
few. I
It's
don't really
amazing.
know. And you know, even as you were suggesting before, Don, that there's one winner. Even that winner will ultimately sacrifice their
Loses in some way.
right. Either connection with the children, working on the dysfunction, blaming it on, of course, the loser
Right.
later on.
Yeah.
So there's really no winner, even when it appears that there's a winner. If there's a financial winner, that's only temporary.
Right. That's right.
So when do you think a change would occur? I mean, how do you think a change can occur? It's
Well,
amazing
yeah.
Can I
that.
answer that question,
Go
Don,
ahead,
please?
sure.
Just, I'll be
Yep.
good. I'll be good.
Absolutely.
Honestly. You really have to get to the root cause of politics. These are state-run situations where the state politicians make up the laws, and they're the ones that have to create something that going forward to make it work. In our case, they wanted to stay that way. In New York, the Democrats have been in charge for 80 years. So as long as they're in charge, and we keep voting Democrats in,
Right.
we'll continue to have the same problem, because the lawyers' are the biggest donators to the Democratic Party.
It's self-perpetuating.
Yeah, so I mean, in other states where they have conservative or Republican control, they don't have the same issues. They have mandatory mediation, or they have mediation peremptory position, first position, so you don't have to worry about going to court if you don't want to. You can keep it out of court. In New York, there's very little option, and we still don't even have licensing on the mediation side, as you know, although we're heading
That's
towards
right.
it
Yeah, we're
probably.
heading towards
And
it.
I'm not even sure that's a great idea, because look what we might be up against, I'm not sure.
Sure.
However, that being said, it is politics that keeps us suffering in New York.
And what's interesting is, just to add what Chris said, I actually went through a model custody situation in Nassau County. And they had set up, there was a Judge Ross there at the time, who had set up a mediation facility in Nassau County as a test. And I happened to go through that, and I was lucky enough to get shared parenting because of that model custody situation. It was a mediation. It was court-ordered mediation.
And a sensible approach.
A sensible
to-
approach.
right,
Yeah,
And
to what is
what
missing
ended
in
up
most
happening,
cases.
it was in place for about, I don't know, 6 months to a year. And it was working so well, they cut it.
Wow.
So
You know,
they
every
were,
state has
Can't have it work too well, apparently.
a success rate with mediation. I'm not trying to promote mediation just because I'm a mediator, but the common sense is here for us.
sure.
It's
sure.
here for us to survive anything that preceded us.
Well, I think a lot of people don't really get mediation. They don't really know what it is.
Yeah.
They don't
Most
understand
people
it.
don't know it's available to them.
That's true,
That's
too.
part of the problem.
When people do a search, they immediately think lawyer, divorce lawyer. I need a divorce lawyer. Well,
Right.
you know what? You don't have to have a divorce lawyer. You know, you could have somebody who just helps you get through the conflict. And you
So
know,
many people just want a hired gun. Like, who needs to hire somebody unless you want to do
the one
harm
thing,
to your
the
ex?
one thing that I find, that I'm sure Chris finds the same thing, is that every once in a while you get a couple that comes in and one says, well, what's the law say?
Yeah.
You know, what are my rights? It's like, you know what, if you wanted to talk about the law, you have to talk to a lawyer. I said, we're here about being fair to the children.
Right.
I said, think about the children. One thing that Chris said to me, I think a couple of months ago, he said, you know, one thing I do is I you know, where's a picture of the child or the children?
Right, yeah.
Put that on the table. This is who
then
we're
talk about
talking
their
about.
life, right.
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 So if you go into court, who are you hurting?
Right.
You know when I
children.
you know, my son, right, when he first started going through the process, he was 2 years old. You know, he doesn't care. You know, he wants to be with both the mother and the father. He doesn't want to be just with one parent.
Right.
He wants to be with both.
The decisions should always be in the best interest of the child. That's
Yeah,
what's
but
missing in
what
this
is
whole
the best
equation.
interest
What's
of the
that
child?
definition?
Right.
So, yeah, it's easy for all of us to say that.
Right.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
Exactly. And that's, you know, and that's where they fall short. And the thing is when you're talking about it through a mediator. See, the problem is when you're first getting divorced, there's a lot of emotions. And as soon as you go to a lawyer, he's like, well, you know, give me $10,000, and I'll
Right.
help you with your emotions.
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
There's a price for that emotion.
Right, there's a price for that. And, you know, the thing is like, you know, we don't charge $10,000. All right, to do the whole process is probably less than $5,000. But the difference is that you get the two people in the room that are, you know, there's still high emotions going on, but that's why the mediator's there, to help you get through that emotion, to help you
Right, to
start
help sort
thinking
things out.
clearly, to sort things out, to make
Right.
things more concrete and factual instead of drumming up the emotions, which is what the attorneys usually do. I won't say all of them do that, but most of
Right.
the ones that I've seen, they drum up that
Well,
emotion.
it's in the attorney's best interest to drum up the controversy and keep
Right.
it
Why
going.
is that?
Make
Maybe
people
they have their
more
own kids to
adversarial.
worry about their best interest, you know?
Right. So instead of paying for your own kids in college, you pay for the Lawyers' kids in college. Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Amazing.
There isn't any common sense that I've ever seen. The longer I do mediation, the more I say to the world, what the heck is wrong with you people who go to court? I mean, it's pretty simple. If you have kids and you go into court, you know, there's something wrong with you. I hate to say that, but it really is. There's something wrong with your understanding, your patience. You know, go to a mediator first. You can go to your family first if you want to have another step.
Sure.
You want to put another layer of education, go see a family member or neighbor, somebody you trust, somebody who you really trust. But before you ever go to a court, make sure you go see a mediator.
Absolutely.
Because at least
I
you have a
think
chance
even
to settle your stuff on
when
your
there
own.
are no children of the marriage, it still makes sense
Yes.
for a
It's
so
couple
much easier.
to go to a mediator
Yeah.
and sort things out
It
in
is.
a
It's so
fair
much
and equitable
easier.
way.
It really is much
Yeah.
easier.
Because when you go into a court, you give up that authority that you had within your family, within your relationship, and you want to keep that in order
Yeah,
to...
why would you give up your power, I always
Right.
say.
Keep the control.
Why
right.
give up your power? Take control of your own destiny and effect your own...
You know, there's
Sure.
weak-minded individuals, Sylvia, that will occasionally not be able to see the bright light.
Unfortunately, there are a
I
lot
think,
of those,
yeah,
Chris.
Chris definitely makes a good point, because the only time that I find where it's really, really difficult to mediate a couple is when one person is not strong enough
Yeah.
to make decisions on their own. Like they feel like they need somebody representing them or backing them up, but
Right.
they don't really, they've never been empowered,
Right.
and they don't feel comfortable being empowered.
To take it one step forward, mediation ordinarily settles. This is after what Don just said. Remember what he said, because I'm going to test you later. When you go from that position, from where that couple is, and that one powerful person is, you get that person reduced in mediation. The power person comes down to a closer level to where the lower echelon intelligent person is ordinary, is commonplace in mediation.
And the dominant figure probably doesn't take to that too well.
No. It's actually over time. It doesn't always happen. The first session sometimes is lost because of what you just said.
Okay.
But after a while, the person that doesn't have the power rises to a level closer to where I can consider that the other person with powers drop down. And then the meeting of the minds can occur a hell of a lot easier.
I actually, the thing that I found in the mediation sessions is I think that power is immediately dismissed.
It's
I
immediately
think
removed.
exactly
yeah.
what Chris just said happens almost immediately.
That
Right.
could
Soon
be
as
the
they
most
walk in.
important aspect of
It's
mediation.
huge. It's
Yeah.
huge, because the thing that I've heard is, you know, they leave the session and the person will call back and say, I can't believe that he's agreeing to this stuff now, or I
Yeah.
can't believe that she's doing that. I can't. Like
Yeah.
they just can't believe that that they are agreeing on things. They
Right.
can't believe it. It's
Right,
magic.
right.
It really is magic.
That
Because
we
I
always
think-
say, we always use the term magic as mediators. I've heard him say that before, and I know I've said it before, because I can't identify exactly what that is that make the
It's like
magic
the aha
occur.
moment,
Yeah,
right?
it
Yeah,
is.
but we can't even say, oh, if we do this all the time, magic will happen.
Right.
Doesn't
No,
always
it's
work.
not.
We
It's
just
not-
don't know,
yeah.
right?
It's
Not a
It's
panacea.
not science.
It's not science. Yeah, it just you know, it's just a thing. You know what? I've actually had situations where people have been in court for a year and a half, 2 years, and then they come into mediation, and within like 2 or 3 sessions,
You're done.
they've already agreed to, you know, almost everything.
Wow.
And it's really like, you know, coming out of that first mediation session after being in court for a year and a half, 2
It's
years.
a relief.
It's a relief, and they actually weren't talking to each other.
Wow.
So now all of a sudden they're talking to each other in the room, and they're not looking at each other because they can't handle that
Right.
yet. But at least they're talking, and they're, you know, and then after a while, you see as the session goes on, as the hour goes on, they start, you know, giving a glance and
Well,
start
because they
looking
do want to
over.
get past it.
They do.
And that's
They
what
do
a
wanna get
mediator is
past it.
helping
Yeah.
the
You're
family to
being
get past
too
that
much
hurdle.
common sense, Sylvia. Yes, I understand.
In court, they're just going to drag
But
it on and pay the
There's
lawyers.
a lot of skepticism that goes on with the person.
Well, I think you need maybe to get out the statistics of how successful it actually is.
Well, I know in cases with us, it's we haven't had a mediation that we haven't been able to
Resolve
complete.
everything?
Resolve, yeah.
That's wonderful.
Yeah,
I've-
and they don't come back. Like that's the other thing too. If you go to
Yeah.
family court, you're constantly going back there.
Because
Right.
something that you meant to handle or didn't get handled, you discover later on, it has to go back. You have to go back to fix it. Whereas in mediation, I always tell people, you can just give me a call if there's something
Right, you don't have
that's
to file a
missing.
motion and pay
No
a fee.
motions, no paying for the motions.
Right,
Right.
right.
Yeah.
And that's a good point too, because you know a lot of times we You know, when they sign the agreement and things are finalized, we still hear from them after the fact. You know, so it's not where it ends there. You know, like with the courts, they sign the papers and everything's over. No, it's not over. You now have to restructure your family going forward. So there's co-parenting that's involved. There's you know, parental coordination and things like that. Just
Well,
to
there's
keep things.
Responsibility to make it work.
That's right.
Yes,
Especially
and
if there's a
that's very
child.
important.
If there's no child, then it's obviously a lot easier.
And
Right.
if there's a financial difficulty, what we notice is compliance is much higher, so that if there's something that previously seemed unreasonable for somebody, because they meted it out together, they both joined in on the, oh yeah, okay, I can
Right.
handle this number, and whatever that number is, they seem to just cooperate with, and there's no reclaiming to go to court, there's no...
That's right.
Well, if in
Because they both
extenuating,
agreed to it to
That's
start
absolutely
with.
right.
And
if it doesn't
compliance.
work in an extenuating circumstance, can it be ameliorated or no?
I mean, can we go back, you mean? Yeah.
Yeah.
They can go back
Well,
anytime
I've
they
had
want.
situations where they came back a year later and they said, well, you know what? Things have changed in the past year. Can we just modify that? Absolutely. It's just an agreement. Let's
How
change
refreshing and
Yeah.
reasonable.
it. Yeah, so then we just, you know,
I have one
make the
right
few
now that's
changes.
working just similar to that. So
Yeah.
yeah, they come back but they decided to wait for a while until we were ready to make the decision. So we had 2 sessions, and they knew what it was all about. Waited a year and a half, and then went back for the 3rd and 4th sessions. We're
Yeah,
done.
so that's the great part about it. I mean, you know, with family court, it's like, it's almost like they want you to come back. Like, you know, you become their customer.
Yeah.
Right.
And it's like they
That's
want you
what
to
it
just
is,
keep
That's
yeah.
coming
amazing.
back.
It's amazing, but they look at you and see a cash register.
Yeah, I think they do.
Well.
I really think they do.
Thank you both for joining me today. It's important to get the word out that you can use a mediator instead of going through that whole unpleasant court system. Societal and political trends are rapidly breaking down the family that once was the cornerstone of our great American culture. At FIT, we know you cannot get this information on your own, so we bring it to your TV every week. We invite all opposing views. My name is Sylvia Flores, and I thank you for watching FIT TV. We'll see you again next week.